Coffee is more than just a beverage. It's a piece of history, a cultural phenomenon, and even a revolution in a cup. But have you ever wondered why it was once referred to as the devil's drink? Our story begins way back in the 19th century, in the Kaffa region of Ethiopia. The name itself sounds like it could be related to coffee, doesn't it? Our main character is a goatherd named Kaldi, just a regular guy. One day, Kaldi noticed his goats were acting unusually energetic. Normally, these goats were pretty lazy, taking a few steps and then lying down. But on this particular day, they were jumping and running around like crazy. Curious, Kaldi looked around to see what had gotten into them. He discovered that the goats had been munching on some red berries growing on a tree. Coffee berries, as it turned out. These berries looked quite pretty, but they tasted a bit sour. They weren't exactly like the delicious coffee we enjoy today. Kaldi didn't keep this discovery to himself. He took some of the berries to a nearby monastery and told the monks what he had observed. The curious monks decided to try the coffee berries, chewing on them and then soaking them in water. The result? They were able to stay awake late into the night, praying without feeling sleepy. From that point on, coffee became a sort of miracle drug, helping the monks stay alert. Some accounts even say that the early Ethiopians didn't drink coffee like we do today. Instead, they would mix ground coffee with animal fat, rolling it into small balls to chew on. Ethiopia is a country located in Africa, and it was from Ethiopia that coffee made its way to Yemen in the 15th century. Yemen is located in Asia and was a bustling commercial hub at the time. They started growing coffee on a large scale, turning it into a highly sought-after commodity. The port of Mocha in Yemen became the main export point for coffee all over the world. That's also the reason for the name Mocha coffee, which you can find on the menu of many coffee shops. Coffee didn't stay confined to Yemen. It spread to the Middle East, North Africa, and eventually the Ottoman Empire, which is modern-day Turkey. Here, coffee became deeply embedded in the culture. People started opening coffee houses where people would gather to drink coffee, play chess, discuss issues, and, of course, gossip. By the 17th century, coffee officially made its way to Europe, thanks to merchants from Venice, Italy. However, coffee wasn't immediately welcomed with open arms. Some people called it the devil's drink because it came from the Islamic world, and at that time, Europe and the Islamic world were often in conflict over religious and political matters. The Catholic Church even became suspicious of coffee, believing that it made people too alert and prone to uncontrolled, erratic thoughts. Some even spread rumors that coffee was a plot by Satan to lure in followers. But then, a very important figure stepped in: Pope Clement VIII. He was invited to try coffee, and instead of banning it, he declared that the drink was delicious. He wondered why such a wonderful beverage should be reserved for non-believers, and decided that it should be baptized. With the Church's blessing, coffee was accepted, and Europe began to fall in love with it. Coffee houses started popping up everywhere, in London, Paris, and Vienna. In England, these coffee houses were even referred to as penny universities, because for just a penny, you could buy a cup of coffee and enter a place where scholars were debating philosophy, science, and politics. Many revolutionary ideas are said to have originated in these coffee houses. But the story doesn't end there. In England, King Charles II even tried to shut down the coffee houses in 1675, fearing that they were gathering places for those plotting to overthrow him. The coffee houses in London at that time were so crowded that people were packed in like sardines, and the lively political debates made the royal court nervous. Fortunately, the ban didn't succeed. Otherwise, the English might not have their afternoon tea culture and might be drinking coffee instead. Coffee also had a significant impact on the European economy. Colonial powers like the Netherlands, France, and England began taking coffee plants and cultivating them in their colonies, from Indonesia and the Caribbean to Vietnam, South America, and Brazil. Thanks to its ideal climate and vast land area, Brazil became the world's largest coffee producer in the 19th century, a position it still holds today. Now, let's talk about the most fascinating part of coffee's history: the bans. It wasn't just in Europe that coffee was seen as the enemy. In many places around the world, coffee was once considered the devil's drink, for some surprising reasons. In Mecca, in the early 16th century, Islamic leaders banned coffee, fearing that it stimulated dangerous thinking. People who drank coffee would gather in cafes, discussing politics and criticizing the government. Coffee houses were shut down, and coffee was confiscated, but people continued to drink it in secret. Eventually, the ban was lifted because coffee had become too popular. In Turkey, also in the 16th century, coffee was banned because of fears that coffee houses were breeding grounds for rebellious ideas. There's a story that if you were caught drinking coffee, you could be punished with beatings or even thrown into the sea. But the Turkish people loved coffee so much that they continued to brew it in secret, and it became an integral part of their culture, as it still is today. In Sweden in the 18th century, King Gustav III had believed that coffee was toxic. He ordered a bizarre experiment, forcing one prisoner to drink coffee every day, while another prisoner drank tea. The result? The coffee drinker lived longer, proving that coffee wasn't toxic at all, much to the king's dismay. In some places, like 17th century Germany, some people argued that women shouldn't drink coffee because they feared it would make them talkative and hard to control. One group of women even wrote a petition complaining that their husbands were drinking too much coffee and neglecting their families. This was the case in London as well. So, what was the deeper reason for these coffee bans? It's because coffee isn't just a drink. It's a catalyst for thought and communication. Coffee helps people stay awake, talk more, and engage in lively debates. In an era when governments wanted to control their populations, coffee houses became seen as hotbeds of dissent. But this very prohibition only made coffee more popular, turning it into a symbol of freedom and creativity. And what about Vietnam? You definitely understand that coffee is more than just a drink there. It's a part of life, a part of the culture, and sometimes just an excuse to get out of the house. Coffee was introduced to Vietnam by the French in the 19th century during the colonial period. They saw that the red basalt soil of the Central Highlands in areas like Dak Lak, Giale, and Kontum had an ideal climate and soil for growing coffee. Initially, the French planted Arabica coffee on large plantations, mainly for export to Europe. But later, the Robusta variety, which has a stronger flavor, more caffeine, and can withstand harsh weather, became the dominant type in Vietnam. Today, Vietnam is one of the largest coffee exporters in the world, second only to Brazil and the #1 exporter of Robusta. More than 90% of Vietnamese coffee comes from the Central Highlands, where coffee fields stretch endlessly, interwoven with the sunlight, wind, and culture of ethnic groups like the Eid, Bana, and Jarai. The farmers here don't just grow coffee. They live with coffee, from harvesting the beans and drying them to sharing stories about the harvests. Just as Italy has espresso and the US has cold brew, Vietnam has Caffeine, the small, charming aluminum filter with each drop of coffee falling slowly is a symbol of patience and enjoyment. The Vietnamese don't rush when they drink coffee. They sit and wait for the fin to drip, watching the traffic go by or chatting with friends. It's an experience that's hard to find anywhere else. Caffeine is usually brewed strong. You can drink it black, hot, or iced, with sugar, or with condensed milk for café suada, a national favorite that every Vietnamese person has tried. During the subsidy period, condensed milk was very scarce, so people sometimes only mixed coffee with sugar or used powdered milk. But that very scarcity made café suada a luxury item from that time on, and to this day, it remains a symbol of simplicity and sophistication. The Vietnamese haven't just stuck with Caffeine. They've also created unique variations that have impressed the world and that people have to try when they visit Vietnam. There's egg coffee, a specialty in Hanoi, with a rich, creamy egg yolk topping over hot coffee. Legend has it that this drink was created in the mid-20th century. Vietnamese people came up with the idea of using egg yolks instead of milk because milk was scarce. Today, egg coffee is so famous that it appears on menus in the US, Japan, and Korea. In the South, there's bak siu, a popular drink in Ho Chi Minh City. It's coffee with milk, but with more milk and less coffee, for those who prefer a slightly sweet taste. The name bak siu comes from Chinese. Bak means milk, and siu means a little bit. Vietnamese people drink coffee anytime, anywhere, in the morning to wake up, at noon to relax, and in the evening to socialize. Some people even bring coffee to work, to brew in the office. And have you noticed? Vietnamese people say, "Go for coffee," but sometimes they don't even drink coffee. It's just an excuse to meet at a place called a coffee shop, though they might order something else to drink. Coffee is also tied to historical periods. During wartime, coffee was a luxury item reserved for the elite or American soldiers. In peacetime, it became a drink for everyone, from urban to rural areas. Brands like Trung Nguyen, with their coffee philosophy, have elevated Vietnamese coffee culture to a new level. And now, here are some interesting facts about coffee that you may have never heard before. The first interesting fact is that coffee isn't actually a bean. You call it a coffee bean, but it's actually the seed of the coffee fruit. Each fruit has 2 seeds that are extracted, roasted, and ground to make coffee. The coffee fruit is bright red and looks like a cherry, but it tastes sour and not as delicious as when it's brewed. The most expensive coffee in the world is called kopi luwak, or civet coffee, from Indonesia. It's made from coffee beans that have been eaten and excreted by civets. It has a very high price due to the unique flavor imparted by enzymes in the civet's stomach, although many people say that it's overhyped. In addition, the production sometimes involves animal abuse, so many people are turning to other high-quality coffees. Coffee has even gone into space. In 2015, astronauts on the International Space Station were able to drink coffee brewed from a special machine designed for the zero-gravity environment. Coffee also contains over 1,000 chemical compounds, from caffeine to antioxidants. Moderate consumption can reduce the risk of heart disease, Parkinson's disease, and some types of cancer. But don't drink too much, because too much can cause heart palpitations and sleepless nights. A humorous study in the US showed that drinking coffee before meetings makes you less grumpy with your colleagues. Speaking of coffee culture in different places around the world, in Italy, people drink espresso standing at the bar, quickly, like a shot. If you sit and linger, Italians will give you strange looks. In Ethiopia, one of the birthplaces of coffee, the coffee ceremony is called buna. It lasts for hours. People roast the coffee beans on the spot, brew it in a clay pot, and everyone drinks from the same cup. In Turkey, the coffee grounds left after drinking are used to tell fortunes. After drinking, the coffee cup is turned upside down, and a fortune teller will read the future by looking at the shapes of the coffee grounds. Cold brew, the cold-soaked coffee that you often drink, may have originated with Dutch sailors in the 17th century. They brewed coffee cold to preserve it on long sea voyages. In addition, in Japan, the Kyoto-style slow-drip brewing technique has also been used to create cold brew for hundreds of years. During World War II, coffee was a luxury item. In the US, soldiers were given instant coffee to stay awake. That's why instant coffee became popular after the war. But the quality isn't as good as Vietnamese Caffeine, and not even as tasty as Vietnamese instant coffee. Today, coffee is an indispensable part of life. More than 2 billion cups of coffee are consumed globally every day, from Starbucks in Trung Nguyen to the sidewalk coffee shops in Vietnam. Coffee has become a common language of humanity. Coffee is also evolving with technology. Automatic coffee machines, AI applications to adjust the roasting level, and even unmanned coffee shops are appearing in many places. But even with the advances in technology, I believe that the small, slow-dripped Café fin in Vietnam will maintain its place, because it's not just a drink, it's an experience.